Hello, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. So if we can get settled in, we're going to get ready to start right now. Well, everyone, thank you for being here. I'd like to welcome you. We are in the beautiful Pinecrest Gardens in the village of Pinecrest here in the southern part of Miami-Dade County. Thank you all for being here. So today we're here for a Miami Town Hall, and this was all organized by the brilliance of Mom's Clean Air Force. And we're going to be talking about kids in a changing climate and what parents need to know. I'm not really a parent yet. I'm still a little bit kind of moving forward with my career. But in very many ways, I feel like I am a parent. I have 2 nieces and 1 nephew. They're 6, 4, and 1.5, almost 2. And I feel like their mother. We have a very close-knit Latin family, so everyone is together with everyone. And so I am very much their mother as well. And just a really quick story about my oldest niece, Victoria, who's 6. One day recently came to my house and came up to me and said, Ina, that's what they call me. I'm Karina Castillo. And they call me Ina. Ina, where should I recycle this? And I kind of looked at her in amazement because I've been trying to convince her to recycle all the paper that she uses for many ages now. And I said, well, just put it here and we'll all take it. It's all one container. And so she said, it's very important to recycle because I'm learning that people aren't taking care of the earth and that we're destroying it. And I said, you know what, you're right, but I'm on that. Ina's job is to help educate people. Ina's job is to help let people know that they need to do what they can because we're facing great environmental disaster. And so with that, I felt very empowered because I feel that I'm doing what I can, even though I'm not her mother, although I treat her like I do sometimes. I'm doing what I can, and all of you, by being here today, are doing something and moving in the right direction. You're getting educated, and you're doing it for your kids, you're doing it for yourself, and more importantly, we're all doing it for the greater good. So thank you. Thank you for being here, and welcome. So a little bit about, I'm Karina Castillo, and I'm the Director of Programming for the CLEO Institute. And at the CLEO Institute, we have one main mission: to educate and engage on the issue of climate change. We're small, we're based right here in the bottom part of the garden, and we're a little nonprofit, but we work with a lot of different national and local organizations. And with that mission, our goal is to get everyone to care so that we can move in the right direction. And I think that's the great part of why we brought this partnership between Mom's Clean Air Force and the CLEO Institute was a natural fit. So, you know, they're out there and there's lots of moms, and I'm very happy to welcome them from out of town, from everywhere, to be here, and most importantly, all of you. And I want to take a minute to introduce, I think, a powerhouse. Dominique Browning is co-founder and senior director of the Mom's Clean Air Force. She's a writer, an editor, but more importantly, I think, the mother of 2 sons. Moms, they're great. She blogs at Slow Love Life and writes regularly for Time.com and the New York Times. She contributes to many magazines amongst Whole Living, Good Housekeeping, Wired, and many other publications. She spent most of her time in her journalistic career in the magazine world and has been the editor for Esquire, Good Housekeeping, Texas Monthly, Newsweek, and House and Garden. She's also the author of several books, as if she doesn't have enough to do, and most recently, Slow Love and How I Lost My Job. So put on my pajamas and found happiness. I don't know how you do it. Really, I don't. But very admirable, and thank you for taking on this cause as well. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dominique Browning.
Thank you so much. I love what you said about your mission being getting everyone to care, and thank you, all of you, for being here. It really does matter, and this is such an important issue. You will hear a lot of politicians nowadays say that climate science is too complicated, they don't understand it, and there's nothing we can do about it. And climate science is very complicated. It takes years and years and years of study and profound modeling capabilities to understand what is going on. So it's true, climate science is complicated, but it's also very simple, and that's what we have to keep in mind. Greenhouse gas pollution is making the layer of our atmosphere surrounding our world thicker, and so more radiation and heat are staying on this planet, and that's warming up temperatures around the globe. The reason it's important to understand this is that it means we can do something about it, and we need to do something about it. So let's go back to how complicated this climate science is. Basically, we have politicians with presidential aspirations who are talking about how it's too complicated, we can't handle it. This is like saying that being a doctor, an oncologist, is too complicated, so I'm not going to deal with my cancer. That's not acceptable. We don't have to be scientists to understand what we're doing. Every single day, we take it on trust that we have amazing science backing up what's going on and what our understanding is about what's happening. We have a lot to lose because we have so many rich blessings here on this earth, and we have such a beautiful world that we want to protect. And I want to just tell you that we have an amazing panel here, just a star group of people to talk to you about why it's important to understand what's happening. I'm a mother, I have 2 sons, and even though my children are grown and out of the house and starting their own families, I still feel like I'm a mother who has to take care of my children. And this idea of taking care of the world, taking care of the earth for my sons is very, very important, and it's why we started Mom's Clean Air Force. We wanted to give mothers and fathers and families a voice. We want to move this conversation beyond the left wing and the right wing, between Democrats and Republicans, and go straight down the middle of fixing a pollution problem. It's actually a very simple problem, and it's a simple thing to fix if we decide we want to do it. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to the panelists so that you can get a really good picture of what's happening in our world and why it's so important that each one of us do what we need to do. Vanessa Hauc has just won an Emmy. Fantastic, congratulations. She's a correspondent for Noticiero Telemundo, and also actually loves French and French culture. She has a master's degree in economy and international politics from the University of Miami. She works at Telemundo Network as a correspondent and focuses on issues that affect Latinas in the US and abroad. Her passion for the environment inspired her to create Alerta Verde, an environmental segment for the Latina community about the importance of protecting the environment. She's worked as a host for 24 Hours of Reality, and she's a co-founder of Sacha Mama, a nonprofit organization working to strengthen the environmental movement in Latino communities. For me, the exciting thing about having her here is that she's a communicator, and that she has the passion and the understanding of this issue and is therefore able to teach people about it is a really wonderful thing. So I'm going to introduce each person as they stand up to talk. So with that, go ahead. And we'll have Q&A at the end and a chance to ask a lot of, for clarification.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And I'm so happy when I see that these type of events are getting the attention that is needed. This is such an important issue. You said it very, very well. And this is an issue that we need to take action right now. There is no more time. I would like to share with you something for you to understand where my commitment to the environment comes from. I'm a mother of a 19-year-old. His name is Sasha. And when he was 4, we saw a documentary about climate change, and it was one of the first ones that came out. And he was very worried. He was just 4, and he asked me if that was a possibility and if we could face that future. So I had to say yes. So he asked me, okay, what can we do about it? So he started coming up with ideas. I'm going to turn off the lights. I'm going to recycle. I'm going to change the water of my fish only once, not twice. And thinking about little things, and I was, great, that's awesome. And then he asked me, what can you do? Of course, I'm a journalist, and I realized immediately that my duty as a journalist was to send this message to the Hispanic community and to educate myself first about it, and then talk about it. And therefore, I started working on Alerta Verde. And the more that I knew about it, the more I interviewed the scientists, the doctors, the people that really know about this subject, I became more concerned and more worried. But at the same time, full of hope, I have to say, at this point in time, because I'm seeing that during these past couple of years, there has been a shift in perception, and people are not denying anymore this problem. We used to have a debate about this issue, at least that's what they said, there was a debate. Now, the scientific community agrees, 97% of the scientific community agrees that this is happening, and this is something that we cause. Therefore, something that we can fix and something that we have to take an action now. What you just mentioned, Dominique, 2 weeks ago, I was in New York working with Mr. Gore in a wonderful event that he has every year. And during 24 hours, we give a round around the world and see what is happening in the different countries and how climate change is affecting different people and what governments are doing. And year after year, I came back to Miami feeling very worried about the situation of our planet, the health of our planet. But for the first time, I came back full of hope, because the name of the event this year was 24 Reasons for Hope. And we talk about all the wonderful things that are happening, how the perception and the approach to climate change is changing, how governments now are actually doing something. They met in the United Nations, and we had 129 leaders and presidents talking about this issue. For the first time, President Obama was really totally forced on that we are going to do something, we're committing. And of course, the United States participation is so important. If we lead in this issue, definitely other countries are going to come on board. So I saw all that is coming. Also, technology is changing so much. We're seeing now in the past couple of years that solar energy is it's almost the same price as the energy of carbon in 79 countries. It has reduced the price 80% in the past couple of years, and that's wonderful. And apparently for 2020, it's going to cost almost the same everywhere in the world. So I think there is a lot of hope, and the hope comes from people like us, that the people that are here in this room today, mothers and fathers that are concerned about the future of our kids. I think that as a mother, what you just said, Dominique, it totally makes sense for me. You want to protect the kids the best way that you possibly can, since they are little, until they grow up, until they go out of the house. But I think there is only one issue that we cannot protect them, and it's a changing climate. When they are away, even when they are with us. I mean, the climates that we're seeing in our planet all over the world is something that we can not do anything about it when we're at home with them. So therefore, I think it's so important to take an action, to contact your environmental organizations, to educate yourself and see what you can do, to talk to your family members, to educate your children. I think that will be like the number thing that we can do, to plant that seed of love and respect for the planet, to tell them that that this is our home. We don't have another option. We don't have another planet, and we have to take care of it, to respect it, and to make sure that it's going to be fine and safe for the generations to come. So I think there is a lot to do, but I'm very hopeful. I see that a lot of people are coming on board, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to face this big challenge that we have in front. Thank you.
I'm very hopeful too, and you'll hear later about some of the plans that are being put into place to attack carbon pollution and methane pollution. I want to add, though, mothers are very, very powerful people. We don't even know how powerful we are. So we do need to talk to each other. We need to talk to our children, but we also need to talk to our political leaders and tell them we know about this problem, we care deeply about this problem, and they can do something and they must do something for us. One of the things that gives me hope is a place I used to live, Texas, and I read recently that Houston is the capital now of wind power in this country, Texas, which is based on oil and gas economy, but will in 10 years be a leader, I think, nationally in solar and wind. Huge, huge change happening. This was on my mind because Dr. Susan Pacheco, our next speaker, is from Houston. She's an associate professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center, and she specializes in pediatric asthma, allergy, and immunology. I wanted her to come and talk to us about what is actually happening to our children across the country, not just here, but everywhere. And then after that, our climate scientist from Miami will talk specifically about what is happening in Miami. Dr. Pacheco is the founder of the Alliance of Health Professionals Against Climate Change, a group of medical and health-related professional organizations in Texas interested in teaching people about climate. She also founded the Texas Coalition for Climate Change Awareness. And you can see in general that she is very interested in talking to people and explaining to people what is happening. She's a health representative for the Climate Science Rapid Response Team, a group of experts who provide accurate scientific information about the climate to media and government groups. Communication is so deeply a part of what we're doing now. I'm very happy to have Dr. Pacheco here.
Hello, I am Susan Pacheco and I'm Puerto Rican. So may I? Because I cannot hide between these things. You know, it's just, now this time doesn't count, right? In my 5 minutes? No. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay. I can start talking without. And if I start in Spanish, or if I change to Spanish, please let me know because I get so excited that I change. I'm that serious. So a couple of things. Number one, today's very special and I'm very honored, more than that humble, because I'm here and I can talk with you. I was sharing with my group yesterday that my new friends that are talking to one person and getting that person engaged is powerful. And I can tell you that I'm also an optimist because today we're a better community. Why? Because we have a group of individuals here that are learning about the climate, that are sharing our passion, and that makes you see I'm changing to Spanish. It makes us a better society, period. Today we are stronger because of this reason. And I need to tell you very briefly what happened to me 2006, I'm the proud mother of 3 Texaricans, and they had homework, high school and middle school, and the homework was in 2006 to go and see the documentary An Inconvenient Truth. Family activity, you know, I was reluctant, so was my husband, we went. So I saw the documentary, and at the end of the documentary, it was an oh my God moment. And I remember sitting there, everybody left in the theater, and here are my 3 kids. Okay, Mom, it's over. I said, guys, wait. And okay, Mom, you know, it's time to leave. Long story short, that ignited a passion. My father, who is one of my most, the people the person that has most admiration to me says, you know, Susie, when I started working with this, you cannot leave what you're doing as a pediatrician because you make a difference. And I told him that I'm a pediatrician, I take care of the children. I also have to take care of the earth because the earth is sick. And that's why I'm here. Now, real quick, climate change is about vulnerability, period. Just vulnerability. And children are vulnerable, and that's why we're the advocates. And again, we're a better society today because of the 50, 60 people that are here, because we're spreading the word. But climate change is vulnerability, and the sad thing is that we will not be here in 10, 15, 30, 50 years to protect our children. So when the strong impacts of climate come, we will not be here. It'll be our kids and our grandchildren. And they're going to ask, Mom, what happened? Why didn't you guys do something? And that's why we're here. And fortunately or unfortunately, we won't see that much in the US, but that puts us in a position of leadership. Because as per WHO, 88% of the burden of disease and damage that climate will cause will be in children in undeveloped countries. Now, just having said that, we know about the issues with asthma, we know about the issues with pollution, we know about the issues with fires, all of this damage that it creates. We know about the issue of heat. Our kids, primarily 1-year-olds or less, are the ones that are more susceptible to heat damage. We know about the issue of transmission of infectious vectors. And if you see it, there's a good number of diseases that are coming in this direction that we didn't have to, had not experienced before. West Nile, in Puerto Rico we say, I call it chimichurri fever, but it's chinkuyunga, I still don't know how to say it. But the thing is that we need to be ready, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that are making the difference. And there will be changes, we're starting to see it. And again, I am an optimist because we are here today, and because when our kids ask us in the future, what have you guys done? Some of us can say, at least one person will say, well, on October the 6th or the 5th, the 5th, I'm so sorry, of 2014, I went to this meeting. We heard about the climate, and the passion started within my life. And at least we can give that to our children. Thank you so much.
I just want to underline, is this still on? Yeah, okay. I just want to underline asthma, an epidemic in this country, heat waves, children have smaller lungs and they breathe more and they suffer more. They are more vulnerable. Disease vectors, all of these things I think you can talk about more when we get you here again. Nicole Hammer is somebody I met several months ago, and as soon as I heard her start to talk, I thought, what an amazing person. She's a sea level rise expert, and she is living and working here in South Florida. She's a consultant for organizations like the Union of Concerned Scientists and the World Resources Institute on climate change. Her research places a special emphasis on the vulnerability of Latino communities to sea level rise. And what you will hear from Nicole is that unlike the situation in New York or New Jersey, where we worry about sea level rise from storm surges and people talk about building walls, that is not an option here in Florida. And the reason for that is very, very interesting. Nicole gave a presentation to the EPA administrator, Gina McCarthy, in her offices in Washington, D.C., to flag the special issues that Florida faces, and Miami in particular, South Florida in particular. Nicole.
Thank you, Dominique, for the kind introduction. I'm going to be using a PowerPoint, so maybe we can turn the lights down a little bit so everybody can see it. So I'm going to give you guys a quick summary of what sea level rise means for us here in Miami. So the first question I usually get from folks when I talk about sea level rise is, what causes sea level rise? Where does it come from? And it comes from two places. So the first is what we call thermal expansion. It's really just water getting hot. And as water gets hotter, it moves faster. So you can see the top picture on the right, that's what water looks like when it's cold. The molecules huddle together. And then when it's hot, they spread out. And so you can see as temperature has been rising in the ocean, so has sea level. And then the second cause of sea level rise is melting ice from ice sheets. And we can see that as Greenland and Antarctica have been melting, that sea level rise has been going up. So we have these two different forces that are causing a sea level rise problem. And here's an example of Greenland, the same time, 1992 and then in 2002. So that both Antarctica and Greenland are shrinking rapidly. And you can see their impact here. This is what sea level rise has, kind of the trend of sea level rise for the last 130 years. And it's quite striking and can be frightening. And so what does that mean for us here in Miami? Well, we've had about 9 inches of sea level rise in the last 100 years. And the way we know that is that we have tide gauges and satellites that give us that information. And our oldest tide gauge is in Key West. And you can see they've been tracking sea level rise, and it's been steadily going up here, and that's where we get that 9-inch number. And a lot of folks think, well, 9 inches, that's not bad, we'll lose a little bit of beach, but it's actually a lot more complicated than that, and it has an impact that reaches all of Miami-Dade County. So, and actually beyond. Here's a picture that I took in Fort Lauderdale on a sunny day. It hadn't rained in a couple of days, but it was flooding. And the reason is because of high tides. So every year, the moon and the earth line up perfectly, and it causes the sea to rise twice, once in the morning and then once in the evening. And when that happens, we get a sense of what a higher sea level would look like. And 50 years ago, when we first started building up the major metropolitan areas of South Florida, we didn't have this issue. But because most of those 9 inches that we've seen of sea level rise have happened in the last 50 years, the infrastructure that we have can no longer handle it. And we get flooding on residential streets and in actually all parts of Fort Lauderdale, in Miami, in the Keys, in Tampa, in St. Augustine. It's actually all over our state. Dominique mentioned that I work for the Union of Concerned Scientists, and we're actually going to be putting out a report on this phenomena of high tides. And we found that in 30 years from now, these high tide events that we only see once or twice a year are actually going to be happening over 200 times a year. Not because the tides are going to be happening more often, just because even a little shift in the tides, because the tides go up every day, just those small shifts plus sea level rise are going to cause big problems and inundations in Miami-Dade County, so much so that it's going to make it hard for us to conduct business as usual. And here's a picture of Alton near 10th, again on a sunny day during high tide last year, and that's all salt water. And here are our western communities that flood quite often as well. And you think, well, why would it flood in the west? And I'll explain that a little bit, but just want to make a point real quick here about health. When I first saw this picture, I thought, actually, that looks kind of pretty. I'd like to live on an island and drive to my house. But then I thought, well, that is standing water. And even though we're talking about sea level rise right now, there's a lot of impacts of climate change, and temperature is one of them. So you take standing water plus increased temperatures, and it creates a scenario that allows for the insect-borne diseases that Dr. Pacheco was talking about before. And so that is actually not a good scenario for human health. And sometimes with these floods, kids go out and swim in the water, or people like to slosh through the water and have fun. But this water contains glass, nails, pesticides, chemicals from commercial operations like mercury and lead. So this actually, as pretty as it looks, is a public health hazard. So why are we flooding in the West? Well, first, Florida is pretty flat. And you can see here in South Florida, we're the flattest part of the state. We're very close to the sea. And then in the next image, let's see if we can get that going, is this rock It's limestone. And we sit on this rock. It's actually where we get most of our fresh water. So there's water in that rock, and there's a space between the top of the water that sits in this rock and the land. And in some places, it's just a foot or two. And that's why we don't have basements in Florida, because we'd get water if we were digging down there. And about 5 million people in South Florida depend on the fresh water that's in this limestone. Because it's so porous and because it's so filled with rocks, when the sea is rising, whether it's expanding or because it has more water in it because of ice melt, that water level in that stone rises, and it gets into those like bright, like kind of white blue lines. Those are our wells, and they go into that limestone. And so as the salt water moves into that fresh water lens, into our aquifer, not only does it raise it and cause more problems for flooding, not just on the coast, but in the western communities, like in the picture we saw, but it also turns these well fields to salt. And for example, the city of Hallandale Beach had to spend millions of dollars to move their eastern well fields inland. And this is a growing problem that the Water Management District here, that makes sure that our water is functioning, they're tracking how that saltwater line is moving inland. And that's actually, I think, the next image I have. So that little red squiggle there is actually moving slowly inland. So not only are we dealing with flooding problems here in South Florida, but we're also dealing with drinking water contamination. And as Dominique said, that's why a wall doesn't work for us, because the water's not just coming up over the edge, it's coming up beneath our feet. And that poses a very complicated problem for engineers and urban planners. So what's in the future? Well, there's a variety of different scenarios. If we keep using energy, the way we're using it, at the rate that we're using it, and from the sources that we're using it, we're going to continue to add to global climate change. And so for us here in Florida, that means by the year 2060, which is well within the lifetime of our children, they're going to see anywhere between 9 to 24 inches of sea level rise. And if we get to 24 inches of sea level rise, that really is a huge game changer for us here in Miami. And here's a picture of what that future might look like. You can see the color change on Miami Beach, because most of it would be flooded, especially in the western areas. And then you can also see how much Key Biscayne would change. And then the very interesting thing about this image is Virginia Key would be flooded. And that's where most of the Miami-Dade sewage goes to be treated. And if we have a storm and it's so close to sea level rise, that poses another public health concern for us here in Florida. And then here's another image of what areas would most likely be inundated if we had 24 inches of sea level rise. And then here's where we are right now. This is Pinecrest, and these are the areas here that would be flooded. And sometimes I show these pictures to people and I say, well, look, there's my house. That's not too bad. I'll be okay. But we're part of a community. We share roadways, we share hospitals, we share our grocery stores. And so when one aspect of our community is affected, even though we might think we live in isolation, it really can affect the way we live our lives. So this is a quote I really like about becoming aware. And when I see these pictures, for me, it's not just maps. I've created a lot of these maps at Florida Atlantic University with students, and we're in the lab, and we're crunching numbers and modeling things, and it's pretty kind of dry type of science. But when I look at these maps, I see that's where I got married, or that's my mom's house, and it changes what it means for me. It adds a sense of urgency. And then also, my family came here from Guatemala and from Cuba, and when my grandmother and my father would talk about Cuba, it was like a lost legacy, like part of our history that we'll never get to really connect with because we had to leave. And so now I kind of have that same feeling, and my question to myself is that the future that I'm leaving my son? Am I going to tell him about a place that he may never get to see? And so that's why I'm here today, to talk to you about this issue. But I have hope that if we become educated, and that if we dedicate ourselves to trying to educate others and to think about our own carbon footprint, then maybe that future of 24 inches is something that we could either avoid, or that we can use our technology and our innovation to learn to live with. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I just want to underline a few things here. This is not normal. This kind of sea level rise is not normal. The kind of drought that we're seeing in California at the opposite end of the country, where people are turning on their taps and there is no water coming out, that's not normal. We have had a stable climate for tens of thousands of years. So when people tell you that climate change has always happened, for millions of years it's true, but actually we have evolved the way we have because we've enjoyed a relatively stable climate. We have now, in the last 100 years, but especially in the last 20 years and going forward, we've disrupted that. So we need to pull back the carbon pollution and the methane pollution that is creating this problem, because 9 inches doesn't seem like a lot, but it's growing further and it's growing more rapidly, and we have too much to lose in this beautiful, beautiful world. So on to solutions. Angela Barranco serves as the Associate Director for Public Engagement at the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Before that, she was at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, where she served as Deputy Chief of Staff and supported Secretary Donovan's groundbreaking efforts to increase the energy efficiency and sustainability of the nation's housing units. This is some of the most important and exciting and hope-filled work that is happening in this country right now. The future is all about energy and energy efficiency. I'm so happy to have Angela Barranco here to talk to us about what we can do, because we all have to agree this is not a path we want to keep going on.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the work that President Obama has been doing to help move the ball forward here. And I will start, though, with talking a little bit about myself. I feel like these wonderful panelists have all done a great job of sort of contextualizing their interest and their excitement. So I have done a lot of work in the political space, but the way I got into the political world was actually through the world of the environment, having that aha moment when you realize that everything is interconnected, and realizing that the political was also very much a part of the environment and the work that we do and the opportunity to move forward. And so it's been such a great pleasure to join the administration and do this incredible work. And we've, in the last year, have a lot of really amazing things that have happened. And one of the most important is the Climate Action Plan. And I'm not sure if folks here know about this amazing plan, but basically President Obama, father of 2 daughters, said it's time to act. Please pull together the most smart people that I have in this administration, and let's put together a plan. How are we going to address both climate change in terms of stopping it, so mitigating the actual carbon that's going into the air, the methane, but also how do we work with communities across the country to ensure that we are prepared for all of these effects of climate change that we're already seeing today, and that will only grow more severe if we don't do anything more. So one of the most important things that was just released earlier this year on June 2nd was the Clean Power Plan. The Clean Power Plan is a new regulation through the Environmental Protection Agency, which is charged with doing exactly what it says, is protecting the environment, but also protecting us as part of that. And the Clean Power Plan would cut emissions from carbon, the biggest greenhouse gas pollutant that we have, by such significant and dramatic numbers that we would be able to bend that curve, the curve of climate change effects. And we would do that by basically working with all of our electrical production across the country through a state-by-state program in order to reduce those numbers. So we're really excited. It's been released. Wonderful groups like all of you and Moms Clean Air Force and folks across the country are really now very focused on how do we go with a state-by-state approach to change our emissions. So, we look at Florida, you've got incredible sunshine, 365 days a year. How many more solar panels can we put up? How much more wind energy can we put in the state that will get us to a place where we're going to reduce the amount of climate change that we're going to see in the future and really incentivize that across the country so that we can have a massive impact, not just here, but across the entire globe. You know, us, the United States, being leaders on this issue will be really incredible over the next year as different climate treaties are being negotiated. And so taking that first step and going out there and being leaders is really important. So the other piece of the Climate Action Plan, which is really very important, is working with communities on resilience. And so we have set up this incredible state and local tribal task force, which basically took, you know, our best and brightest leaders from across the country, some here even from Florida, from California, from all these places that are really seeing the dramatic impacts of climate, you know, out in California where you don't have water, out west where there are wildfires that there have never been fires before, in South Florida where you have flooding that you've never seen, in New York where you have the effects of hurricanes that are damaging, you know, 200-year-old structures. You know, folks across the country who are at the state and local level are really looking at what do we have to plan for? What do we need to make sure that as we build buildings or, you know, we build a bridge or we talk to our communities, how do we sort of look and plan forward? And so a large part of what we're doing is just sort of helping coordinate everyone across the country to make sure we're ready. And so that's a big, big piece of that. And then, of course, you know, what I would say to everyone is, you know, we have one big piece of that, and that's the Climate Action Plan and working with everyone. And the president is very much committed to doing as much as possible every single day to move the ball forward. But all of us have a place in that. And I always like to tell people, you know, talk to your family, talk to your community, educate as many people as you can, educate yourself, be curious about the impacts of this. Because it's something that we're all working with and dealing with every single day, but we can all make a difference. And especially kids out there, I feel like, you know, they talk to everyone and they're very excited about what they do and what they say. And getting kids out there, like knowing the science and just being able to have a conversation with other adults about the impacts of this and what it's going to mean for their futures, I think is really important. So thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
As you heard, there's a lot of state work going on, which is actually a really great thing because each state will be able to craft how they respond to the request to bring down carbon emissions. But what that also means is that people living in the state have a lot more power to affect the change now. It really makes a difference for you to talk to your representatives. And on that, Vanessa, you spend a lot of time talking to audiences about these issues. What do you see as the biggest problem in communicating the problem?
Okay, well, thank you, Dominique. I think the biggest challenge is when people feel that they cannot do anything about it. When they feel that this is a huge problem and that there is nothing that they do can solve it. So what I do is tell them the opposite. You know, this is an issue that the wonderful thing about it is that we can all do something about it. There is so many things that we can do at home, little things that at the end of the day have a great impact. I think right now we're at a point that, of course, obviously changing the light bulbs, trying to save water, but right now, I think the number one issue that we have to do is really to get involved and to get educated and to, as you say, talk to our elected officials. They are the ones that, at the end of the day, are going to pass the legislations that are going to make huge changes. And we have the luck that President Obama it's on board, but we still have a Congress that needs to go forward with this plan. So definitely we need to be active and move forward. And we have a lot of power. I mean, we mothers have a lot of power. Fathers, I mean, our greatest motivation is for our kids to be fine, to have a safe planet. And I think we have to focus on that to move forward.
Thank you. The EPA plan, by the way, when enacted, will remain in place, and it shouldn't be thought of as a Democrat's plan versus a Republican's plan. It really is a plan to protect us, just like all the clean air rules have been for 40 years. On that note, Dr. Pacheco, you're a pediatrician. Talk to us a little bit about asthma and respiratory issues and how heat affects them, and why global warming, everything getting much warmer, has a direct impact on children.
Okay, I won't stand up right now. But just before I forget, one thing that parents can do that I think is very important is just ask your doctors, ask your pediatricians, just put pressure on us, because we are the ones that are going to help you to provide direct care, and many of us are not involved. So we need your help so that you put pressure in that line and ask your doctor, what are you doing? Now, having said that, as you're aware, asthma is a big problem here, actually in the world. There's over 300 million people with asthma in the world, and the numbers are increasing. Here in the US, we have over 25 million, 7 million of those are children. Asthma is the most important and actually condition for chronic illness in children. Now, one of the problems that we have, aside from the fires that are going to be affecting children's lungs, is the production of ground level ozone. And I said ground level because it's different to the other ozone that we were talking about. And the problem is that ground level ozone increases as the temperature increases. So the hotter it gets, the more ozone is going to be produced. And kids with asthma, their vulnerability is going to increase. And I don't know if you're seeing this in Miami, but in Houston, in Texas, we see this. It says ozone is XX levels. We advise kids to stay inside the schools and not go outside, and people that are higher risk, like heart disease or chronic lung disease, should not go outside. So that's one of the problems that we're going to find with heat, and many of us are not aware of that. You know, the other problem that we see, actually that we have to think about, is that our children, we have been exposed to pollution. Let's say I'm 50 years old, and actually this problem has not been that severe until not long ago. Our children, your children, are going to be exposed to pollution their whole life, because they were exposed in utero when the mothers were pregnant, and then they will be exposed during their early years of life, and they will continue to be exposed. So then we don't know what's going to be happening long term. But again, because of that reason, we need to make a statement to the EPA, to your doctors, to your leaders in our country, to see how we can improve and help this problem.
Thank you. Thank you. And you'll all have a chance to ask questions as well. Nicole, in Florida, we have a situation where one senator is very aware of what's happening with climate change and wants to address it, and another denies that it's happening. What exactly do you think should be done to move past these somewhat false barriers so that we can activate here in Florida to protect? Florida has been called by climate scientists the ground zero of climate change. You will feel so many profound effects so much sooner than the rest of the country. So this is a very, very important place to be thinking about these issues.
Well, I think that politicians look to the public to kind of temper their presentation of an issue. And I think that if we continue to educate ourselves and make our voices heard on the topic of climate change and let them know that this is an issue we care about, then they're going to not have an option as to whether or not they're going to talk about it and as to whether or not they're going to think about it. And even now we're having a lot of politicians from both sides of the aisle reaching out to local scientists and meeting with us to talk about the issue, and that's very encouraging. So I think there's only so long you can ignore a problem, but when your backyard is flooding, it gets to the point where you really don't have a choice, and you need to move forward. And unfortunately, the impacts that we're seeing now, we've had to see them for that the kind of change of direction, politically speaking, to happen. But it's happening, and that's encouraging.
And again, I think it does matter to pick up the telephone and call your senator's offices. We make it very easy on our website how to find them, and tell them you really care about this, you're concerned, and you want them to do something. One thing that most people agree on, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, is that efficiency, energy efficiency, is a good thing. I like it as a mom because my bills go down. I pay less money to the energy companies. But one thing you could clarify, Angela, is that's good for me, and it seems like kind of a small thing for me to buy an energy-efficient refrigerator or windows that have good insulation. Does that really make a difference if all of us do that?
Absolutely. The answer is absolutely yes. When you really combine the power of all those little things, turning off the lights when you leave the room, buying the more energy efficient appliance, adding up all of the industrial energy efficiency. So let's say you own a business and you have an opportunity to, say, put insulation into your building or buy a new product or thing that is made more efficiently. You're making a huge difference. One, by creating a market, and I think that's really important for us to think about. You know, we as consumers are very powerful in this situation. We can choose to take something from obscurity, you know, some product that only very greenies love or something, and take it into mainstream. And so you look at something as simple as like a compostable paper cup. Well, you can buy that anywhere now today, but it's really the power of the consumer that says, I choose this. And so we as consumers, you know, mothers, fathers, daughters, can do that. And I think that's a choice we make every single day. Certainly, I think on the broad spectrum, you know, energy efficiency is one of the most important ways that we're going to meet our carbon reduction goals. And so working with industry, working with governments, working, you know, in my former position at the Housing and Urban Development, looking at ways that we can take federal buildings, something so simple, you know, we have the power of purchasing, and purchasing something that's more efficient across the United States that applies to all those federal buildings can make a huge difference, plus all the consumers, plus all the businesses, and suddenly you've got a really huge impact. So, yes.
Fantastic. So every little thing does add up to one big thing. I would love to hear questions from all of you. Anything that you want to know about? Does somebody have a mic?
I don't think I do. Have any of you uncovered any relationship between illness of any kind and living near the power lines?
I am so sorry, sir. Yes. Oh, yes, power line.
Have any of you discovered any relationship between living near a power line, major power lines, the big transmission lines mainly, and any illness? There was some evidence of childhood leukemia, I believe, related to living close to power lines for children, and Alzheimer's for adults. Have any of you uncovered any such information?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. It's not a topic that I followed that close, and it's been something that has been debated. However, now that you mentioned malignancy, as of last year or early this year, the World Health Organization declared air pollution a carcinogen. And these were studies that were done very carefully around the world. And we've seen that in places where there's increased pollution, there's increased risk of lung cancer. And not only lung cancer, but in the pediatric population, more other types of malignancy. So again, coming back to the same issue, the effects that we're seeing in terms of climate and air pollution is going to affect not only what we think that is, you know, the asthma and all of these things, but it's going to affect the long-term outcomes of our population. And if you think about air pollution and lung cancer, it's something that we don't, or cancer in general, is something that we don't consider on a regular basis.
Hi, thanks for taking the time to come educate us this afternoon. And Dominique, you mentioned earlier some of the other factors that are part of climate change, and I wanted to point out one thing you were mentioning, Republicans versus Democrats. You can Google this to check it out, but in 1989, Newt Gingrich was one of the co-sponsors of a House bill to help prevent climate change. So this has not been it was a bipartisan effort at one time, and I think big business sort of grabbed a hold of the situation, and they made it a partisan issue. So, you know, this has been around a lot longer than Marco Rubiez or anybody else that wants to make it an issue. But my question to you all is, right now the focus is all on carbon emissions. And Dominique, you mentioned methane as an important factor. It's easy for us as individuals to feel hopeless because we feel helpless, because we're waiting for government and big business to solve this problem for us, right? So everybody's here trying to make a difference, and I think that's important. But the things we can do beyond energy efficiency, which is leaving your car at home, we need to talk about that. We're talking about little things. We got to talk about big things. Turn off your air conditioner. Eat a plant-based diet. Those are things that really make a difference, and you don't have to feel helpless. So I think we need to have a little bit of conversation about what we can do to address some of the bigger issues. So if anybody wants to take that question.
I thank you so much for your question. I think you are absolutely right. I mean, we have the power to do so many things. As you just mentioned, every time that we go out and buy something, we're voting for that product. And if it's a green product, we are supporting that product, and we're keeping it on business. So the more that we get that, then other products are going to come out and are going to follow and are going to be green too. So as a consumer, we are very, very powerful, and we can do great things. Just reading labels and making sure that what you're buying is environmentally friendly, that is green, is a great thing. At home, as you say, we can always, I think it's 50% of our electric bill comes from the heating or the cooling. So just make sure that everything that you have at your house is working well, that your filters are good, that your air conditioner, every time that you leave the house, you turn it off, that is at 78, that you have an electric thermostat. Those are all great things that you can do, of course, to save water. And the wonderful thing about this is that you're going to save money at the same time. So it's a win-win situation. I encourage you to go to any of the web pages of these wonderful organizations, and we always put advices and tips that you can look out to. Something else that we can do is the way that we move around. In Florida, we have this beautiful weather. We can just bike more, you know, and walk a little bit more, or buy cars that are environmentally friendly. Now we're seeing that every different brand are actually taking out to the market cars that are electric, that are hybrids, and we have to support that. The more that we buy, then the less the price. So it's just, I think it's like a wheel that is going around, and the more people that get involved, the best it's going to be.
You know, one thing that it worries me is that as we go forward, and I think this is something very powerful that we can do, don't let any person tell you that this is a debate, period. And I'll tell you, because you will approach your neighbor, and you will approach your doctor, and you will approach the church person, and they will tell you that this is a debate, or this is questionable, we're not settled on this. So educate yourself, hear other people, see what they say, and just learn. If you go to some channels on TV, climate change does not exist, period. If you go to the state of Texas, we don't have climate change there. So when people tell you, no, this is a debate, just bring the data and just tell them, well, you have to read this and this and this, and not X news. Now, having said that, I don't know how you guys feel about climate change, or well, not feel, no. But if you have any questions and you're still thinking of the debate and what your neighbor told you or your mother told you, just come forward. You know, we'll share with you, because as important as, we're promoting education, we want to have a conversation and present the information to you so that you can make your own judgment.
One real quick. There are two things you can do here today while you're sitting in your seats. You all got a pen in your bag? You can sign this comment card, which we will deliver to the Environmental Protection Agency for you, that says that you're in support of the Clean Power Plan. You can send your voice straight to the White House administration to tell them you support the Clean Power Plan. The second is 1 month from yesterday is an extremely important election here in Florida. So not only do you need to pick up the phone and call your senator, but if you want to pledge to vote, our friends from the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, SACE, are here today, and they have these pledge cards. So if you want to pledge today that you're going to make sure that you go out and vote in November, that's something else you can do. So there's a lot of things you can do in your home. There's two really big, really important things that you can do right now while you're sitting in your seat listening to the rest of the program.
Thank you. This question is pretty much for the whole panel. In conversations with Vanessa, and basically coming from a third world country, we do come to the realization that perhaps the communities that suffer the most and they're hindered by so many means are those that are from a lower social class, lower income class. How do we overcome not only the lack of education, but also the lack of income to be able to make those changes? And we're not talking about just here in the in Latin American countries. Here in the States, it's a constant struggle when people don't have the opportunity to make those changes in their homes, make those changes in the cars. So what would be the best way to go around that?
What's interesting is I looked at the communities across the country that are most vulnerable to sea level rise, including Miami, places in Texas, and New York, and California. They also, the cities actually in those states have the largest, collectively, the largest population of Latinos in the country. So we are, as Latinos, more adversely affected by climate change impacts. We also, there was a poll done, I believe it was NRDC, that looked at who is most concerned of all the different ethnic groups about climate change. And above everybody, it was also Latinos. So we're most affected, but we're also most concerned. And coincidentally, the Smithsonian just put out a report saying that our carbon footprint as Latinos are lower. So we actually normally do a lot of the things that reduce our carbon footprint, like take advantage of public transportation, or carpool, or walk to the grocery store. So there are actually habits that save money. You don't need to have a lot of money to make the right choices, and ultimately, when you make some of those good choices, it also benefits the pocketbook too. So it's not necessarily something that's going to cost us more money to do. I think sometimes we think there's a problem, let's put money on there and fix it. But it's a lot about our habits and the choices we make. Someone mentioned a plant-based diet. You know, meat is quite expensive, and when we reduce the meat that we eat, we're helping the planet, and we're also saving money, and we're helping our health as well.
But this is also why I keep emphasizing politics. Your voices really matter. Politicians do not want to make mothers angry. They don't really want to make anybody angry. And so mothers are powerful. So picking up the telephone and leaving messages with staff in the Senate office, calling the governor and saying, you must do something, it really does make a difference. And we've been very quiet for the last 20 years while all of this has been going on. I think for a while we thought, oh, it's a big problem, somebody else will take care of it. Clearly, it's not being taken care of unless we really raise our voices. President Obama said, show me a movement. Show me that people care. Well, we are saying that we care, and we need to keep that going no matter who is in office. So that's the power of staying engaged on this issue politically. It matters. Yeah.
I am so sorry, I talk a lot. But going back to your question, yes, you know, the knowledge of our groups, and I come from Puerto Rico, but I am Latina. So what happens in Central America and South America is my problem also. And what I found, I'll be in Peru in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to Brazil. People don't know about climate. They do not know. And just like we said, and I have a map from WHO that I would like to share with whomever wants to see it later about vulnerability. But again, you know, we can work at the level that we have. Just talk to our families in South America, in Peru, in Guatemala, wherever, so that little by little we spread the knowledge. And just get people moving there. I discovered that there is not a healthcare organization in South America that addresses the climate among the physicians. So I just started to make calls, and you know, most people say, who's this crazy Puerto Rican? What is she doing? But you know what? I already have 3 people. So that's the way that we start.
If every single one of you goes home and tells 5 people what's going on and that they need to make noise, that's how change happens. I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to thank this amazing, amazing panel. I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you to the Clio Institute, to Pinecrest Gardens, to Genius Jones, and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Put Mom's Clean Air Force in your search bar and come and find us online. A lot of our material is in Spanish as well as in English. You'll learn about asthma and climate and very, very clear and understandable information about what's going on. And call your senators' offices.
Tara and Annika from Mom's Clean Air Force are going to go around. If you signed your carbon comment, if you would hand it to them, our friends at Genius Jones donated 10 prizes that we'll be pulling names for you to take home today. So you can go home with your children and plant an herb garden in your own home.
And can I add something just real quick? In a couple of weeks, climate parents are going to be having an event, more likely in the Freedom Tower. So if you want to make your voice heard again on climate change issues, that's an opportunity here locally to come out and represent our interests. And also, Karina, I think you guys are going to be having an event too.
And then when there's pens in your tote bag, everyone's been asking for this. Just check that and fill out your cards. And so really quickly, I want to mention something that the Clio Institute is participating in this week. We are hosting a press event and also an education event with many high school students from the area for King Tide Day, where we'll have some flooding on Miami Beach, very much guaranteed. And hopefully we'll be welcoming some very exciting guests that we will announce tomorrow, so stay tuned. If you not on our email list, please visit our website. And we really welcome you all for a press event at 9:30 a.m. on West Avenue and 5th Street. Or come hear some of the panel. We're going to have somebody from the National Resources Defense Council, somebody from, we're going to have a local scientist from the University of Miami. We're going to have also an elected leader, Mayor Cindy Lerner of the Village of Pinecrest, and also somebody from that's Thursday, October 9th, and that panel will begin around 11:20 a.m. So please visit our websites, visit everyone here. Thank you for being here.
And thank you again to the panelists, and thank you all of you.